we have our roles, we have our jobs because of you, the agent. So we're all very grateful for you. And if you can't tell, we love doing these webinars because we like to just get here and interact with you. So the more that you can chat in, the more commentary you have with us, you're just going to incite us to be even more ridiculous. So please feel free to reach out through chats or blow Mickey up while we're on this, and we'll see whether or not you can. Yeah, I tell you what, Mickey, if they all reach out to you while we're here doing this, like you just interrupt the presentation, like I need help.
I
Yeah.
mean, why not, right? If you guys are trying to work on a quote,
Yeah,
let's do it.
let's do it. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off. Like it has been evident so far, please interrupt us with anything, right? Like we love to hear from you. Ask your questions. Some of this stuff, might seem easy and routine to me because I've been doing it so many times. But if I fly through something and you've got more questions, please don't hesitate. That's why we have Adrian on the call because he's very serious and will answer things, as
Yes.
opposed to the rest of us who are just having
Keep
fun
us
with
in
y'all.
line a little bit,
So if you want a real underwriter answer, like he's here, now's your time. All right, cool. So I am going to go ahead and share screen. All right. So what you're looking at is our demo environment. And that allows me as a Rainbow employee to be able to show what it looks like for you. Whoa, you're tripping me out. Anyway, sorry, y'all. I'm going to try to focus. Yeah, thank you. That allows me as a Rainbow employee to show you what it's like in the production environment. It's going to look very similar. If we come across anything that's a little bit different, I'll point that out, but for the most part, it should be exactly the same. Before I dive into that, a little really quick overview for all of you who pretty much already know, but we're structured as an MGA at Rainbow, which means that we look and act just like a carrier does with one major exception. We write on Accelerant paper. Accelerant is A- rated excellent, size 9 in the admitted market. So they've been a phenomenal partner for us. They write with us in all of our different states, and we continue to grow alongside of them. And you'll hear as I go through this that there's a couple different times that we even interact directly with them on individual accounts to get their feedback on higher limits and various things like that. So they've been a phenomenal partner. Admitted market, we specialize in restaurants. And you'll see us continue to grow over time. But what we really wanted to do was focus in on those restaurants right out of the gate and build out some good, robust products for them and make sure that you've got the best thing available for your insured in the admitted market to write a restaurant. But then you'll see us continue to grow and specialize in some other areas as well, because we've been very blessed by some amazing agents who have done a great job working with us. So we continue to grow. All right. So that being said, what you're looking at is our policies overview. This will be the screen that you're greeted with as soon as you log in. And in no time at all, I'm sure it'll be full of tons of different policies, just like this is. You can see a couple different things at a glance here, which is really nice. You can see whether or not something's active and in good standing, whether or not renewal is upcoming. This is something that, again, we've got Adrian on the call. Please take advantage of that. He spearheads our renewal process and has done a lot to make sure that everything is in good working order for that. But yeah, it's been going incredibly well, but you can see whether or not renewal is upcoming and if a payment is overdue, right? So we wanted to make this at a glance for you so that you can get in and help the insured make sure that everything stays on track and on the books. If you want to get in and do some self-service though, you got to click this little green arrow over to the side of whatever policy you want to take a look at. So we'll hop into one of these here. You get a little bit more of an overview of the policy based on this, but if you want to dive into the full documents, you can do that here. If for some reason you meant to get the quote letter signed and you didn't, you've got an option to go ahead and pull that up here. Or if you just want to grab the policy download, review it with your insured, review it for your own records, that sort of thing, you've got it here and accessible within your login. Obviously, this is really tiny. You can download it, print it, whatever it is that you need to do. I'll sign in a little bit because the next thing I'm going to talk to you, or zoom in a little bit because the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is how to file a claim, right? So we do not have an internal claims team, at least not yet. We partner with North American Risk Services. So we've got no reason to build an internal claims team because it's been phenomenal partnering with them. They've done a really great job with our agents and our insureds. And as we continue to grow, like we all know that that's why we're here in insurance, is to protect the businesses. If there are claims, one of the most important things that a carrier can do is just be there for the clients, right? So bring us that feedback as you work with North American Risk Services. We love to hear that, how it is that it's going, and anything that we can do to help support in that. But when you are ready to file that FNOL, if that ever comes across your desk, all of that information is here on the very first page of your policy. All the different contact information for North American Risk Services. Also, you can sign in to your account here and either file a property claim or a liability, and it'll take you to that FNOL letter here on the North American Risk Services website, right? So lots of different ways to access it and get that first notice of loss in as quickly as needed. So then our team, as you've heard us talk about some, we handle the endorsements for y'all as well. We do all of the basically post sign up with Rainbow service. We manage your relationship. We take care of the servicing on your accounts. We're there to help support you. And then you know, as we talked about, we partner very closely with Adrian and his team who underwrite all of your individual specific accounts, right? So when it comes to endorsing them though, you will hop in here and you will fill this form out, and that comes right over to us. And we usually try to get back to you same day if at all possible. We ask that you give us up to 3 business days just in case we get a little bit backed up or somebody's out of the office. But generally speaking, it's our goal to get back to you as quick as possible. Just like Mickey said, she does a phenomenal job of making sure that you're taken care of so that you can represent well for your insureds too. And then, you know, just so that we all feel like we're actually doing work, we hop in there every once in a blue moon and help her out. But really, it's Mickey. She does a phenomenal job of taking care of this for you.
Hey,
All right.
Jason,
Yeah.
we have a question here from Julie,
Yeah.
who asked, do the insureds have the ability to file claims online or just the agent?
So yes, so the insured would be able to access all of that through that first page on that policy doc, like I was showing you. All of that, you know, where they can go online, how they can call, how they can email, all of that is available here on this first page. I don't believe that they can file a claim, but don't quote me on that. I don't know that they have those links within their logins. I've never actually seen the insured login though, so I might just be assuming that and it might be present. But either way, like the goal would be to have them partner up with you as their agent as well. We would want to keep you in the loop and have you be aware of that. So all that information is on the first page of their policy as well. Cool. If for some reason they wind up behind in payments, this is a great question though, thank you. If for some reason they wind up behind in payments, they do have the option to log in and update their payment information, just like you do as the agent as well. In addition to that, you can always reach out to us through this chat feature, whether it's Mickey, Naomi, myself, or now Shaylee also. Even every once in a while, Adrian and Morgan will hop in and take chats. But you reach out to us and we can help you work through updating payments, making sure that everything is on schedule. But you all have access to this payment schedule too. All of our policies are auto pay, so they will automatically be drafted from the payment that is on file, and it'll happen on this charge date every single month, right? And assuming that you're on monthly, otherwise, you know, pay in full, that's all taken care of up front. So just know that we're trying to build out more and more of these systems so that you can self-serve and support your insured, but we are still there and able to help you work through all that. All right, so we're going to skip quotes really quick. Go to settings. It's really simple. Change your name, change your email address. Resources is something that we always love to, you know, shout out Morgan for, because they've done it, and Adrian for that matter. Morgan and the underwriting team have done a phenomenal job of making sure that you've got lots of resources here to help support you, your insureds, your agency, right? And I'm not going to go through all of these. Just know that one of the more recent additions is that we got a bunch of form specimens on here. So if you're ever missing any of these, just reach out to us and we'll get you a copy of something that's not listed, but we tried to have all of the major ones here. And then in addition to that, we also have our Rainbow Appetite Guide and our NFPA cheat sheet. So our Appetite Guide is something that I just want to take a quick second to show you. Obviously, it's very dense and there's a lot of information here. I'm going to show you how it is that you classify restaurants as you go through the quote flow process, but know that included here is an explanation of what each of these individual classes means, as well as some examples, like includes hamburger restaurants, fried chicken, etc. Right? So definitely reference this file because we keep it up to date and we make sure that you've got all the tools that you need to be able to go through the quote flow process. But, you know, as you're going to hear me say about 10,000 times, just reach out and chat and ask us a question too. We're more than happy to talk to you. That's why it's there. It's because we actually don't mind. We love the questions from the agents. And then the NFPA cheat sheet, that stands for the National Fire Protection Association, if you weren't familiar. But they handle a lot of the, you know, obviously the fire protection placement for restaurants, right? So we in the insurance industry may not be as familiar with all the regulations that go into that. Your insureds are going to be, right? So we provide you materials so that you can be up to date on it as well. And you can know what it is that we're looking for as you go through the quote flow. Even though your insureds will probably already know this, we want to help supply you to be the professional and be the resource to them as well. So we will come back to this. I'll show you this when we go through the quote flow and where that applies. When you are ready to start a new quote, you will click on this green button right here, and it takes you right into filling out the demographic information for the insured. The way that our system is set up right now is not going to stay this way for terribly long. We're progressing toward a multi-location submission within the actual quote flow itself, right? So for right now, what we've got is a bit of a hybrid of that, where you can enter each location and you can add that on, but that will create separate policies for each one. So just note that our online process is for individual locations only, right? But we give you this option here because we're starting to build out that multi-location. And if you fill this out and it's for the same insured, they've got all the same contact info, all that, it recreates that so you don't have to retype it each time. And I'll show you what that looks like. But here is an important thing to point out as well, the contact email. You want to use a non-agent email address. Y'all are probably familiar with this at this point. It's becoming more and more common in the insurance industry to use this, but this is how we reach out to the insured. We always copy you as well so that you're aware of everything, but this is also the email address that they will use for their login so they can access their policies and they can see the payment upcoming schedule, right? So this is an important email to make sure that you've got set up correctly for the right person at the insured so that they can get access to all of that. All right, so we're going to hop back to the dashboard so that you can see a quote that's already been pre-filled and you don't have to see me type as I go through it. But I'll show you this quote screen as well. We've got a number of different statuses here. You're seeing most of them in draft because this is our internal one where we hop in and we mess around with quotes for demonstrations, for testing things, whatever. So you're going to see a lot of drafts in here, but basically that just means that it's not finished yet. There's some things that need to be filled out still. If it's bindable, which is what you're going to see most of the time, you've gone through the quote process, everything looks great, and the system says, hey, you're good to go. And you're going to see that pretty frequently. However, one of the things that makes Rainbow really stand out is the fact that we can do more than just that, right? It's more than just bindable or declined. You can reach out and have a real conversation with us, with Adrian, with the rest of the underwriting team, and say like, hey, I looked over your underwriting guidelines. I know what it is that Rainbow likes, but I think you might still like this risk for XYZ reason, even though it doesn't quite perfectly fit, right? And we love those conversations. If you want to talk to us about pricing and try to hit a target so that you can beat the rest of the market, like you want to talk about those exposures, like we can make exceptions, we can make changes. And that's one of the things that makes Rainbow really special is partnered together with how much we care about our agents. The fact that we can adjust this stuff on an ongoing basis has made for a very successful combination with our agents. And we're happy that you're here joining us in that as well. But that being said, that's what a bindable quote looks like. If you wind up referring and Adrian and his team review it and approve it, then it'll come back to your system and it'll show bindable there as well. You'll get an email from them too saying like, hey, this is approved. We took a look. It's great. We gave you the pricing that you needed, whatever the case may be. But then you'll log into your system and you'll see they've already set it to bindable for you. Expired, our quotes are good for 60 days. We'll talk about that once we get up to the effective date. But just know that if you're a couple days beyond that, like Mickey, myself, anybody else in the chats, like we can unlock that for you. But if you're going to be more than a few days and you're still not sure whether or not they're ready to bind, usually it's going to be best that you go ahead and requote. You'll see that it takes me a little while because I talk through a lot of it, but once you're used to using the system, it's 10 minutes at the most to go through and quote. And you're getting the best, most updated rates, coverages, all of that stuff when you create a new quote. That's why we expire the old ones so that everything stays up to date. All right. One of the things that you're not seeing reflected here, because I think I must have messed with this earlier, is that if you go through the whole quote process, and there's some piece of it that you wind up referring for, let me see. It won't just let me. We will carry on because I do want to show you all this. We'll quickly flip through the pages. I do want you to see what it looks like when it needs to be referred. There's a couple of different statuses though, whether it's referred or referral. And that's why it's important to kind of point that out to you all, because we have a system where you can go through and ask for a referral, but you haven't yet set it up, right? So The reason for that is that maybe you wanted to go through and get a premium. You wanted to see what it was before you went back and talked to your insured. Maybe there were some things that you just kind of made assumptions about and you want to verify with the insured before you send it over to us for review. But you will get this very clear, click refer now to request a manual review. It says that here as well. We will not take a look at this until you click that refer now button. That's a very important distinction for you. And the reason that we don't do that is that we realize you may still have some things that you want to handle before we come back to you with a list of questions of like, what about this? What about that? Not that we necessarily would, but just saying like, we want to wait until you're ready to send that over to us, right? So make sure you're clicking that refer now button. And you can see once it's all set up to that, it'll say action required, refer now within your dashboard. That is your clear sign that like, hey, Rainbow's not looking at this yet. So you're going to want to hop in there and click for refer when you're ready for us to take a look. All right, but we're going to hop into one that is bindable so that I can show you the whole quote process. Like I talked about, we've got all these different classes for restaurants. We've obviously designed this so that we can provide the best coverages and rates for the specific type. Get into that underwriting guideline. I'm not going to go through all of these just to save time here, but we've got all that listed out in the underwriting guideline, like I showed you earlier. There are 3 important ones to point out, though. We are not a home for food trucks. Unfortunately, we just don't have the coverage for them. It's on this list so that you know that like we realize that food trucks are probably a part of it, but if you were to select mobile food vendors, that would be a declination. We don't have the auto for them, but like everything else, like I said, you're going to hear me say a bunch of times, if they're permanently stationary, we can potentially consider them. If you've placed the food truck somewhere else, we can potentially consider the associated brick and mortar. Right. So there are some ways in which like it's not necessarily a dead end. Just know that the food truck, the food trailer, we're not a home for it. We just don't have the coverages that they would need. Same goes with bars and taverns, although that's a bit of a weird one. We can do up to 65% in alcohol sales. And just because you want to write Jason's Bar and Grill, you might be used to working with a lot of carriers who say like, oh, it's got bar in the name, we're not interested. That's not what it is that we do, right? We have a comprehensive list that we look through to see, is this truly a bar or is this just a restaurant with some higher alcohol sales, or they're trying to be creative with their ways to get families in here, that kind of thing. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. And then the last one to say is this warehouse or incidental office. We want to be working with the restaurants themselves, right? So if you've got a group of policies or a group of locations, and one of them happens to be the office that's associated with all that, reach out to us and have a conversation about that. We might still be able to consider it as part of that larger group of policies. But generally speaking, we're not a home for just the office. We're not a home for the food manufacturing chain. We want to be working with the folks who are actually selling it to their customers in their restaurants. All right. So if they have multiple locations, like I've talked about, you do want to select this yes, even though this quote flows for single locations, because what that does is it adds a designated premises endorsement to that. So then you've got those identified specific limits for each location. So then each location has your 2 GL limits, et cetera, right? So definitely click that yes if it is a multi-location so that you've got that designated premises on there. Are there any claims in the last 3 years? That does not mean it's an automatic kick out. We can consider up to 50,000 in claims in prior claims over the last 3 years. And if it's a little bit more than that, if it's something where like it wasn't necessarily the insured's fault, if this is a risk that's been mitigated and shouldn't happen again in the future, reach out to us and have a chat. We'd love to talk to you about it. Just know that generally our guideline is 50,000 or less over the last 3 years. All right. Business or any officers, criminals, we'll skip that. Really quickly, just show you, like, does the establishment have stairs? The reason that I show you this is that, if you click, I understand, we're still a great home for it. The system is designed to be very dynamic. If they don't have stairs, you don't need to see any of that. You don't need to read it. So it hides it all from you. And you'll see how that goes as we go through the quote process, but we really do our best to save you time as you're answering these questions. And we hide the stuff that isn't relevant to you. But if they have stairs, we're still happy to write them as long as they meet those safety requirements. Here is where we talk about whether or not it's a bar, right? Do they have a happy hour between 8 p.m. and close? Do they have drink specials under $4? Are there door bouncers? Are there sporting activities, live concerts with 3 or more performers? These are all more in-depth questions so that we can really understand the risks that we're on. And just like everything else, for instance, if you're in a really rural area where all of the drink specials are under $4, and that's just the way that it is because things are a lot cheaper, reach out to us and let us know. You'll still want to check that box, but we would love to hear from you and we can potentially still consider it, right? Other stuff like alcohol service over 2 hours after the food. Oh, that's new. We just changed that. if we, oh no, wait, hold on. I'm sorry. I just needed to scroll up, y'all. Liquor between the hours of midnight and 5 a.m. We regularly get, thanks for laughing at my ridiculousness, Mickey. We regularly get asked, like, can you do 24-hour establishments? Yes, we absolutely can. One of the really interesting ones that I had never even heard of before I started here was that some IHOPs sell alcohol, apparently. But as long as they stop selling it before midnight and they don't sell it before 5 a.m., then we can still consider them, even though they're 24-hour establishments, right? So we can look at 24 hours. They just can't be selling alcohol between those hours. All right, so things like that. Live concerts with 3 or more performers, we can do karaoke, right? So, consider that as you're going through, and definitely reach out to us if you ever have any questions. Is there a playground on the premises? Just like with the stairs, we want to make sure that it's safe, but you might be surprised to hear we can potentially consider it even if there's a playground. Does the insured have any of the following? This is where we kind of figure out whether or not, like, hey, you're not placing the food truck with us, they've got it somewhere else, but they do have a food truck as part of the operations, right? We can do ghost kitchens, we can do commissaries, right? So this is really where it is that we kind of figure out some of those extra details about the risk. Security cameras, fire alarm systems, that kind of thing. We'll skip over all of that. Responsible for the parking lots rating question. Okay, so here's where we talk about the National Fire Protection Association, right? So the NFPA. All these cooking types are in appetite for us. Not a problem. What you may not know, because I didn't know, I don't want to presume that, maybe you do, some of you are restaurant specialists, but all of your restaurants are probably going to know this. If they have wok cooking, they need to be cleaning their hoods and vents at least quarterly, right? Why would you just know that off the top of your head, though? You can get in here and see this on the schedule, though. This is how you define wok cooking. This is how frequently it should be cleaned. We want to make sure that you are prepared as a professional for the insured. Now, we very rarely get questions about this because most insureds are just aware of it, like it's how they practice, right? But we want to make sure that you've got these resources and you can know what it is that we're looking for here, right? So what is solid fuel and how frequently does it need cleaned? It needs cleaned monthly, right? So that correlates directly to these questions here, right? So if it was solid fuel, we would need to at least be cleaning monthly, or else this would not be an appetite for us. Along these same lines, we regularly get asked, can you do buffets? Can you do tableside cooking? Can you do hot pots? We love restaurants. I can't promise you we're going to write all of those, but we can consider them. They are in appetite. So definitely reach out, quote them with us, and we would love to take a look. All right. Remodeling or renovation, if that's a yes, just make sure that it fits all this. Basically, we're just making sure that you're not going down to the studs. It's done within 90 days. Most of the time this comes in effect is like, hey, they're remodeling and they need a policy before they open in 2 weeks. And we're a great home for that. Cash only is a hard decline. We want to make sure that they're using a point of sale system. Number of employees, hours, etc. All that's pretty straightforward. Brand new businesses, we can write those. We're still potentially a home for your new establishments. We just want to make sure that they've got at least 3 years in management experience. And if that's the case, we can still take a look. But if it's not a brand new establishment, you don't even get asked that question, right? So we really try to refine it for you. Ownership structure, occupancy, all that straightforward. All right, so liability section. We can do up to 10 mil in annual sales per location, right? Because again, our policies are single location as of right now anyway. We can do up to 10 mil per location. If you need a little bit more than that, you've got some exceptions, you want to chat, reach out to Adrian, reach out to his team, and we'll take a look. I love every time. It's great. Thank you for doing that. I always look to you too anytime I say your name because I know you're going to. Our GL limits, most of the time you're not going to see this 2.4 because it's only available in California. Most of our states are only 1.2, but as we grow, you may see that in some of the other states that we add on. And I'll flip over here and I'll show you how that all works, right? So as you can see, we're already live in about half of the country. And then we have several more states that we're hoping to hear very soon. These are states that we already have plans to file with the DOI or have already filed with the DOI, and we're underway in that process. We have aspirations to continue to grow beyond this. This is just the immediate future. But this is where we have BOPs available. And then excess, you can see the only thing that changes is California. We're working on that filing as well. For now, you have the option to do 2.4 limits in California. Every other state is just going to be 1.2 because you have the option for the excess. I'll show you how you get an excess quote at the end of this process, but know that we can do up to 3 mil in excess in-house over our own GL, and we can do up to 1 mil in excess over our own liquor liability. Pretty straightforward. You'll see here at the end of the quote how it is that you can request a quote for that as well. But just know that if you're not seeing 2.4 limits, that's why, because in every state except for California, it's only 1.2. Off-premises catering, we can do up to 100% catering. We're not going to be at home for the HNOA when they cater, because they're going to be doing that self-delivery stuff. But otherwise, we love caterers, and you're not going to find that too often in the market either. Do they sell alcohol? This is where I referenced earlier that I imagine many of you caught. We can do up to 65% in alcohol sales. And I brought this up regularly. Like, I would love to hear from any of you here in the audience if you have another market that can do more than that. In the admitted market, obviously, right? We really stand out in that space, right? Because we want to be able to work with some of your folks who have those higher alcohol sales, even though they are traditionally a restaurant. Maybe they just sell really fancy drinks, right? So there's a number of different reasons that might apply. But as you're going through this, you will see just all those questions that go to that. Like, are they doing proper alcohol training and safety procedures in place, tips, serve safe, all that stuff, right? One other thing that I like to point out here, because it's not incredibly obvious, is that, all the way up to 50% in alcohol sales, assault and battery is automatically included. Those of you who work with liquor liability regularly know that that's a type of coverage that you're regularly looking for in association with it, right? But it's not in our quote flow at all. And you might be curious as to why. It's because it's automatically included. Now, as soon as you go over 50% in alcohol sales, you get an option to add it on. It is not automatically included anymore, but all of the questions associated pop up. We're still happy to offer it to you, assuming that we're offering on the quote, but you would go through and you would fill that out and elect to add it on if you're over 50% on all sales. But we're going to say that we're under for this quote that we're doing, and we don't even get asked because it's automatically included. All right, our liquor liability limits are separate from our GL limits. So it's a sub limit up to 1 mil. You got to select the amount. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we've got those excess options above the liquor as well. HNOA, we love to write it as long as they're not doing self-delivery. So like I talked about with the caterers, but then also with pizza places if they're doing self-delivery, or any other restaurants, right? HNOA is great if they're not doing that. If they are, however, we can still consider the risk. We just can't do the HNOA on it. All third-party delivery is perfectly fine with us, no concerns. We don't do robotic delivery. In the rare case that you live in an area where robotic delivery is actually a thing, you probably realize why we don't do it. But yeah, if you check that box, it's going to be out of appetite for us. All right, so building types, property, all that stuff. I'm going to go through it really quick. Ask any questions if you like. There is not a particular type of construction. There's not an age of building, whether or not it's sprinklered. All of that stuff we can still consider. We don't have any hard declines in our appetite, right? So answer all this, get the information that it is that you need for the building. Just know that, we're pretty flexible around the building stuff. What it is that we're really looking for is how is the age of the roof. Is it at least, has it at least been repaired or replaced within the last 20 years? And if it's a non-metal roof, if it's metal, then we're looking at up to 30 years, right? And then we also want to know when the electrical wiring and plumbing was last updated. Last 25 years is what we're looking for there, right? So if you ever have any questions about this, reach out and ask. If you can't figure out what those updates were, and you've tried the landlord and you've tried all kinds of other stuff, but let's say, for instance, they've recently had it inspected and it's approved and up to code and everything is great. Reach out. We'll have that chat. We'll see whether or not it's still an appetite. But just know that that's our typical guideline, is 25 years on plumbing and wiring. All right, so that covers most of this. Our TIV per location, our total insured value per location, is 5 mil. We have an option that you can add on the building, or that combined with the BPP, as long as it's under 5 mil. If you need something that's a little bit more, you've got some exceptions. Like I've said 1,000 times, reach out and chat with us. But that is our general guideline, is 5 mil per location, right? If you add the building on, you'll get some additional questions based off of that, like what you want it to be, how you want to add ordinance or law, etc. If you're in an appropriate state, you may get questions about mine subsidence. So just know that you'll get those questions up there. If you select no, you get an option to add tenants improvements and betterments as well. So again, that dynamic process of like only showing you what it is that you actually need based off the coverages that you're looking for. We don't care whether or not you put any sort of tenants improvements in this TIB section or BPP. TIB is a little bit better of a rate, but you can put it in either one. It doesn't matter to us. All their peril deductibles, pretty straightforward. Winds and hail. I like to take a moment to talk about kind of the way that we do business here, right? So we do reach out for third-party data, and we do that at the beginning of the process when you fill it out. So if it's, for instance, like a coastal restriction, we find that out right away and we let you know up front. One of the other ways in which that factors is here with the wind and hail deductible. This was preset. Now you didn't see that because I filled all this out ahead of time to demo for you all, but this was preset to 1%, which means that I can offer 2, 5, or remove the coverage altogether, but I cannot say no separate deductible. It has to at least be what it's preset at, right? So if this was preset at 5%, I could leave it there, or I could remove wind hail, but I could not offer 2, 1, or no separate, right? So whatever that's preset it at is the floor for us. You can go above, you just can't go below. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out and ask. But once you learn that system, it's pretty straightforward. Yeah. All right. Is the location any of the following? These are mostly rating questions. The one thing to point out is if it's attached to a HAB, we want to make sure that it's either the owner or general manager is living in that HAB, and or there's a firewall protecting it, right? Now, this is inconsequential of whether or not we write the building. We just want to make sure that there's good protection in place so that, you know, the person who's the tenant there is aware of the restaurant operations versus there's a good firewall, right? That being said, if you write the building, know that we still cannot do the habitational. That's not going to be a part of what it is that we can offer. We only do restaurants. So it would have to be the restaurant that owns the building in that portion that they're in, right? But that said, if it's attached, if you're in a downtown area and they've got residences above, like we can potentially consider it as long as it's one of these two things.
Hey, Jason, I'm going to interrupt you real quick because we did get a question into the Q&A, and I think it's actually a great question. What roof type should be selected if the roof is 2 different types? That's a really honestly great question because I know both with roof and with construction types for buildings, you do get those cases, not frequently, but sometimes where they might be split. If it's the case where it's like 90% one type and 10% or less the other, go ahead and use the majority one. Like that's an incidental. I get it. If it's closer to like a 50-50 split or, you know, 70-30 or something like that, go ahead and reach out to us at underwriting so that way we can take a look and see what we'd feel most comfortable and what would be the most accurate rating there. Our underwriting email is underwriting@userainbow.com, real simple, and we'll be able to help you out. Just because, you know, in those cases, you know, we want to make sure that we're getting an accurate rating there for whatever the mix is. It might be the case that either would work, but, you know, I'm not going to say that the person who has half a metal and half a shingle roof is going to be the same as someone who has a full metal roof. Great question, though, Alejandro. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you for answering it, Adrian. Okay. All right. So, okay. Do we have any other ones? Are we good? All right. Yeah, primary versus premier package. Y'all are familiar with this concept because just about every you know, carrier MGA offers something similar to that. You can click that little link and you can see side by sides of what our primary versus our premier is. One of the things that kind of stands out about Rainbow is that we've got all these customizable ones, and we really try to cater that toward the restaurants, right? So outdoor signage, spoilage, tenants liability, utility services, time element, wine collection, all of that can be modified whether you put on the premier or not. Right. So just keep that in mind. I'll show you where that is, but definitely look in there, check out the Premier because there's a lot of really great coverages that come along with it, and an increase in limits. But yeah, if you want to customize any of those, it's this last question down here. Would you like to add additional coverages or customize? You select yes, and then you go through and you pick which ones it is that you want to customize. No on fine arts, yes on utility services. You get the pop-up for the different options that we offer, right? So just keep in mind that that's all buried here underneath this if you want to customize anything at all. If you are looking for equipment breakdown coverage, it is automatically included in the Premier. So you won't get a question about it if you've added the Premier. If you say no, though, you get this, do you want to add on equipment breakdown? So if any of you are ever wondering where that is and why it's not showing up, it's because you got the Premier and it's automatically included. Wine collection limits, all the rest of this is pretty straightforward. I will take a moment to say that the Cyber Suite coverage and the APLI is through Hartford Steam and Boiler, right? So it is their forms that are on our policy. It's all fit together seamlessly, but I'm sure all of you are familiar with HSB. They're very well known in the industry and longstanding, very well liked. But it is their coverages. If you elect to add those, you'll get the questions associated with that and whether or not you want it added. All right. So additional interests, add them on. We don't charge. These are restaurants. They're not contractors. add on the blankets. There's no charge associated with it. Do it before, do it after bind. It's all good. If somebody just really wants to see their name in writing, you can select to add individuals and go through the process here. Pre-bind or post-bind, we help out with that. I showed you that endorsement form earlier. Fill that out fully, let us know their name and their address, and we'll get it added on for you. But you might as well put blankets on everything because we don't charge for it. All right, discount screen. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this, but I think it speaks for itself. There are a lot of discounts that it is that you can add on. Are they part of association, Google Business Profile, etc.? And even if like all of these apply or none of them do, here's another drop down with even more. And then my favorite question in this entire process is, would you like to refer this to underwriting for additional pricing considerations? The reason that I love this is because it allows you to directly talk with our underwriters about what your target price is. You select that option, you let them know like, hey, I need this for $15,000 in order to be able to beat market and guarantee that I can place this with the insured. You say that, you let them know all of that, and Adrian and his team review every single one of these. It'll get referred over to them, and they'll take a look and they will do their best to hit this. It's one of the reasons that I'm so proud to be here at Rainbow is that we have an underwriting team that really does their best to make sure that they meet you and your insureds where you need to be met. They're going to try to write this with you. And how often do you hear that from a carrier, right? Especially somebody who's over on the sales side, like, I don't know, maybe you send it in, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Adrian and his team, they really try. And we have a very flexible system where they can really take advantage of that and make exceptions, change prices, get you to what it is that you need. So definitely use that box there. All right, but that's what's my favorite. I get to dote on Adrian and his team because they're so fantastic. All right, so thank you. Up to 60 days out is how far you can quote. That's how long our quotes are good for, so that you'll see that won't even be selected here. If for some reason you ever need to backdate a quote, you're going to need to reach out to us for that. It's obviously going to need to be reviewed by underwriting. We're probably going to need a no known loss letter. We're probably only going to go so far back. Just know that you don't have the option to backdate here within. Just reach out, ask us about it. Or like Adrian mentioned earlier, underwriting at userainbow.com. Userainbow.com is a great place to start. All right, we're getting toward the end, y'all. Payment plans, monthly or pay in full. In every single state except for California, pay in full gets a 5% discount. California just doesn't allow it, so that's why it's not on there. Pay as you go, you'll see this here. It's coming back soon. Very briefly to explain it to you, is something that we're excited to be able to offer you in the days to come, which essentially is set up very similar to what you might be used to with work comp, where the insured would send in their monthly sales at the end of the period, and then we would charge them at the end of the period based on those sales and the rating associated, right? As opposed to just that flat payment up front in the month prior to when it is that they're getting the insurance, right? And the reason why this is so great for restaurants and why we're excited to be able to offer it to y'all is because restaurants have a lot of that seasonality and fluctuation. It helps prevent that end of term audit, right? So it really helps meet them where it is that they need. If they're having a little bit of downtime, they don't have to pay as much for their insurance. That's a really great feature. Now, why is it not live yet? Because nobody wants to chase down monthly sales every single month, right? So we're building an API so that we can integrate with some of the well-known folks in the industry, like Toast, for instance. And it can automatically send us the monthly sales statements, and you don't have to chase them down. We don't have to chase them down. The insured doesn't need to mess with it. So that's why you see that coming soon, and we're excited to be able to offer that to you. All right, so we're at the final screen now. Essentially, you're gonna be able to grab your quote, put in your payment information, proceed to bind. All of that stuff is all available here. If you want to add on the excess liability, this is where you would do it as well, right? You get this little indication here with this purple box, quote additional coverages. Very simple, 5 questions, what it is that you want, the limits that you want, whether or not you want it to extend over HNOA, liquor liability, A and B, etc. 5 questions, you fill it out, send it off to Adrian and his team, and they'll come back to you with a quote. So if you want to download the quote PDF, it is 33 pages long, y'all. And that's because we go through everything for you and your insured. And again, forgive the tiny print. I'll zoom in a little bit, but you can definitely check this out when you generate your first quote. We go through all the different coverages, their limits, and the premium associated with them. We break all of that down for you, right? And then we go through that list, and then we talk about all of the different forms that are going to be on it as well. We go through all the different payment plans, the electronic delivery disclosures, the automatic pay disclosures, all of that. And then we also go line by line through what you just filled out on the quote flow process, right? So, what is the name? all the underwriting information, liability, property, everything we just did is in here. That way, at the very end, if you want to get the insured to sign and maintain that for your records, you've got literally everything that's a part of the policy, and they've signed off on that, and you can keep a record on that. We don't ask that you send that to us. If you send it to us, we're not going to do anything with it. We simply put this here so that you can protect yourself with it. So hopefully that's a really nice feature, and that's why our quotes are so incredibly long. But you can download that here, or you can send it over to the insured with this little hidden green button up here as well. What that does is a couple of different things. It uses that email address like I talked to you about at the very beginning of the process. It gives them that login ahead of time. Normally they would just get it once you've bound, but this will send it over to them to get logged in ahead of time, and they can hop in and they can input their own payment information. So if you work for one of the agencies that prefers to have the insured enter that payment information, doesn't want to collect it in-house, you can do it that way. They can grab their quote themselves by sending it out to them. And then the other thing that it allows for is, as if all those other discounts weren't enough, we also offer Rainbow Rewards, which is basically another 5% or so savings on if they upload certain pictures, and Adrian and his team can take a look at the establishment, make sure that it's got good cleanliness practices, safety practices, that sort of thing. But you can share that quote here as well, and the insured can upload the photos on their end. Right. So a lot of different features that they can do if you share that out with them, but by all means, collect that information yourself, enter it into the system, and you can upload and bind everything on your end. We have options. The last thing I'll tell y'all is that we have options for credit card and ACH. Right. So dependent on whether or not you want ACH, right now, everything defaults to credit card. You would just reach out to us through chat and say like, hey, can you enable ACH for us on this account? We hope to have that changed very soon. So keep an eye out that you can change that yourself within the system. It's just somewhat new for us to be able to offer that. We previously only did credit card. Now we have both options. So in the meantime, just reach out to us through chat. We'll enable ACH and you can get it bound that way as well. Y'all, I think that's it. I think we got it. Got it in one.
Nice.
Very good.
Oh, Nate was about to tell me
Not
I
your
didn't
best.
get it.
It's not
Yeah.
your best one, but you got it.
All right. Cool.
Wow.
We need like a leaderboard somewhere that we like, because I'm certain that I do it faster than Naomi. So
Wow.
Oh,
Just a little more thorough, that's
Great.
all, you know.
Oh,
that's fair. I deserve
Uh,
that.
I'm just, I mean, I was, not gonna say it, but you started it.
Yeah, but I made you.
Yeah.
I'm guessing we got to all the questions that came in throughout that.
yeah.
she gave you a
Oh, thanks, Tiffany.
Yep.
That's why you're my favorite.
There's my tea.
Yeah. Y'all, if you can't tell, we love this. We're so happy to have you here. We love doing this with you every week. It's going to be exactly the same thing next week, but maybe you come back and you watch Naomi do it and see whether or not she beats my 50-minute record.
I will. It's me next week, so.
We would
game.
love to have you. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's it though. Unless there's any other questions, thank you so much for coming today. Reach out to us. We'd love to chat with you about anything that you got, but we're excited to have you on board and working with us here at Rainbow. Welcome to the team.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, y'all. See you.
See ya.
Liz.